Hey Toros, this is Brenda Mendez from the CSUDH Career Center, and today we'll be talking about interview success strategies. So today's session will cover some of these areas. One, we're going to identify strong virtual and phone interview techniques. So what strategies you can use when you are interviewing virtually as well as over the phone. Identify 3 examples of your demonstrated success and accomplishments. So we're going to think about what are some of the successes and accomplishments you have that you can highlight during an interview. And we're going to kind of talk about strategies to model professional behaviors and presentation, right? Because that's all part of the interview process. If you notice the icons, we'll be covering these areas from the NACE Career Readiness Competencies. NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they've done tons of research and have identified 8 competencies all graduates should have by the time they graduate. So we'll be talking about communication, global and intercultural fluency, and critical thinking. So I want you to think, how do you typically feel before an interview? Probably the first thing you're thinking of is scared and nervous and want to get over with it and just be done with it, which all those feelings are normal. But I want you to also keep in mind that having the right attitude can help you get that position and kind of calm your nerves. So I'm hoping today during this session, you'll be able to hear some strategies to help you be better prepared for your interview. So the importance of having a positive attitude is because the employers want someone with a positive attitude and has a little more confidence, right? So we always make the joke of fake it till you make it. So you want to smile and show enthusiasm. And remember, it's a mutual process. The employer wants to ask themselves, why do I want this person to work with us? And you are also asking yourself, why do I want to work with this employer, right? So it's a mutual relationship where you're both trying to figure out why each of you are a good fit for the position. Are you a good fit for the company? They're trying to figure that out. And you're also trying to see yourself, how do you fit into the company and organization? So for virtual interviews, which is very common now, right? We often use Zoom and other tools of that sort. These are some of the things you want to check prior to your interview. You don't want to do it right before. You might want to do it a day or so before. Check your webcam, right? Check that your camera is clear. You're in a good space with good lighting. It doesn't look too dark or there's no shadow that's kind of casted. If you want to use a headset, it might be helpful as well, especially if there's a lot of noise going around or you want to make sure they are hearing your answers correctly. If you're using AirPods, sometimes there are issues with connectivity, so make sure those are working as well, and make sure that they're able to pick up the mic and the information as you're speaking. Check your Wi-Fi. Sometimes with Wi-Fi, if you're using a virtual platform such as Zoom, it may slow down with the camera portion. So check your Wi-Fi to ensure that it's working well. Check your background. If you can't use a virtual background, consider going into a space that's a little less cluttered and there's no distractions of people walking behind you. So trying to find an ideal space to interview. Find a quiet space. So make sure you turn off your phone, alerts, emails on your camera, everything on your cell phone, on your laptop, that you're not distracted. And also let your family know, right? So if you have an interview coming up, let your family know that you're going to be interviewing and to not distract you for the meantime. Try to find a quiet space. And some common platforms that are used for virtual interviews can vary. Zoom is one of the common ones right now. Skype, Google Meets, and Hangouts. Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx are just a few that are utilized for virtual interviews. So prior to the interview, once you check your technology, if you're having a virtual interview, you want to take a personal inventory. And so you're probably asking, Brenda, what is a personal inventory? A personal inventory is really an opportunity for you to reflect and understand what are some of your major accomplishments as it relates to the job or internship that you are interviewing for. How does your work, educational background fit the position? How do your personal values, skills, and interests relate? Review your resume because it's a great way to use that for talking points, but also they may ask questions regarding your resume. So you want to be sure you are prepared to answer questions and make sure your resume is an honest document, right? We tell students, we want to make sure it's reflective of what you know and you've experienced. And one of the things you want to also keep in mind as you're preparing for the interview is ask the scheduler if you can send updated copies of your resume and cover letter and who you should send them to. So in other words, This is an opportunity for you to connect even with either the interview committee or even other folks that are on the hiring process. So make sure you have all your documents up to date, and the Career Center can help you with that as well. Do your research. I can't stress this enough. Do your research, do your research, do your research. If you can, print out the job description or make sure you save it. And so that way you can actually highlight and study it. So you have opportunities to really give concrete examples of your work experience in education as it relates to some of the job requirements. Research the company employer, right? Look online, check out their LinkedIn profile, see how their mission, values, skills, and philosophy align with yours. What are some of their current initiatives or their accomplishments? You can also incorporate these into your responses. So having all this information is to your benefit because one, it'll help you feel a little more calmer and more comfortable with the interview process. But two, it shows the employer that you're very serious about the role and you're very excited about the role. And save all links to jobs you're applying to in an Excel file. Here's another job search hack. We have a specialized organizer that's available on our website in our career and professional development manual. You can definitely use that to help you keep track of all the positions you've applied to. So even though your interview may be virtual, you want to make sure you are dressed professionally as if you were to be in person. So you may want to aim for business casual or business professional, depending on the position you are interviewing for. And we can always help you with that as well. So ideally make sure when you are having the interview virtually that the angle of the camera is facing up, right? So if you're not wearing the proper bottoms, you don't want them to notice your pajama bottoms or your sweats. So you want to make sure it's focused and focal points on you, right? So your face, and make sure you are looking professional. So you have the proper lighting. So we do recommend you wear the proper bottoms, right? But if you're not, make sure that the camera is angled in a way where it doesn't catch that. Proper lighting, I mean, is to make sure you're facing an open window. Those ring lights that are available on Amazon are great ways to cast a nice lighting in front of you. You don't want any shadows that can be a little distracting or off-putting. So you want to make sure there's lightings to show that you're engaged, that you're smiling, and that you're enjoying the opportunity to interview. So here are some tips in terms of business casual versus business professional. Both of our models have some set pieces that are great. So typically business casual, it can be a cardigan, just your dress shirt, a blouse. Traditional colors are the black, blues, and grays. You can wear some bright colors and textures. You just want to make sure it's not too overbearing. And another thing too is you want to keep in mind on the camera, it looks a little different, right? So be aware of that. Flats are acceptable, lower heels. You don't want to use 6-inch heels, right? Especially if it's a virtual interview, no one's going to notice your shoes. Makeup and hair should be in a way that's both styled and that's not distracting. For my men that do have long hair, you may want to put it in a bun or in a ponytail so it's pulled away from your face. And for ladies, if you have long hair, you may want to also style it in a way where you're not going to be constantly pushing your hair behind your ears or kind of adjusting your hair or makeup. So these are just some of examples that you can definitely use for business casual versus business professional. Remember, business professional is a suit. So it can be a skirt or pantsuit, or it can just be, so it's 3 pieces, right? It's the blouse or shirt, and it is the jacket and the pant or the skirt. And in a suit, even though it may be black in color, for instance, it needs to be the same material. That is what makes up the suit. Some great places to invest in a suit that are affordable. One, go thrift store shopping. There's a lot of folks that donate great professional wear available at thrift stores. Additionally, JCPenney, Macy's has a great suit sale every year. New York and Company for women and ladies who prefer the skirt suits, they have some available there as well. And as well as you can definitely Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls are all great opportunities to invest in a suit. I tell students just invest in one, you don't need to have multiple. And if you're unsure how you're supposed to dress for your industry, the Career Center can help you with that as well. And here's some final tips that you want to think about in terms of colors, accessories. Wearing a belt and a watch might be something you may want to consider. You might want to actually wear, if you're wearing a skirt, if you're in person, you want to make sure it's at knee length. So these are just some final tips to consider when dressing for the interview. Okay, so you figured out dress, you figured out technology. If it's a virtual interview, you've done your research. Okay, now it's time for the interview, right? And we're still a little nervous, and that's okay. But you want to, again, still have that positive attitude. So first impressions are important, okay? Employers often make their first impressions within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone. So nonverbal communication is really important. So even though it may be virtually, for instance, you still want to sit up straight, make eye contact with the camera as if you were in person, and engage with your body and hands. So head nods, smiles, right? Using your hands as needed when you're speaking, and maintain a positive attitude because people can feel your warmth through the camera. Now, if you're in person, previously we would automatically extend our hand to shake hands, right? But now with post-COVID, that's something we don't recommend just because we don't know. So we kind of have been taught to maintain distance, 6 feet distance, social distancing. And you may ask, right? And that's not a bad thing. You can ask them, if you're meeting the interviewer for the first time, and you can say, "Hi, Mr. Smith, it's really nice to meet you. May I shake your hand?" And if they say no, that's okay too, right? Don't take anything personal with it. They can decline polite. Okay, so during the interview, these are the things that you want to try to keep in mind. So try to memorize and address the interviewers by name. And the reason is you want to try to remember their names because you're going to want to send them a thank you email after the interview. You want to send an individual thank you email to each of the participants on your panel. During a virtual interview and even in person, you can take notes. Just let them know that you would be taking notes just to kind of help you keep track and understand the conversation you're having. Remember, the interview is a question and answer kind of forum, but it's also an opportunity to conversate and learn. So demonstrate your research, right? You've done tons of research on the company, the organization, and the position. Show that. Highlight what you've learned through your research. Speak concisely and use correct grammar. Sometimes we get very nervous and we might use lots of filler words like like. So be aware of that, right? Catch yourself if you are using filler words. Sometimes we get so nervous, we talk very quickly and we speak quickly, which makes it hard to understand. If you notice that about yourself, slow down and make sure you're pronouncing each of the words correctly and carefully. Don't chew gum. Sometimes we may chew gum out of nerves or it's just something that comforts us. Try not to chew gum beforehand. And you remind yourself, again, I'm going to stress the importance of this to slow down. When you're responding to questions, avoid rambling, going on tangents, and not answering the question. Sometimes we may get stuck on a question, and that's perfectly fine. It happens. But don't panic and don't sweat it, right? Don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. So if you get asked a question and you're not sure how to answer, say, that's a very good question. Can you please repeat it for me? Or sometimes we get questions that are long, that might have 2 or 3 questions. You may ask them to clarify the portions that are unsure. Additionally, avoid rambling and going on tangents. Sometimes when we're nervous, we just talk and talk and talk and just don't even answer the question to begin with. So avoid doing that. Okay, so again, I can't stress enough, and that's why we wrote it twice. Don't be afraid to ask for clarifications. These are some examples of common questions that are asked in an interview. Okay, tell me a little bit about your work history or tell me about yourself. Why are you looking to leave your current company? What is the biggest challenge you've seen at your current position? How can you contribute to our company's success? So these are some common questions that are asked during an interview. And I suggest that you practice, right? You kind of get practice with some common questions. Another interview hack for you all. In our career and professional development manual, we have practice questions for you. So you can practice with a partner or a friend or a peer to help you prepare for the interview and how you would respond. So one of the methods that best help you answer the question is the STAR method. So the STAR method is basically effective storytelling. You're direct, you're logical, meaningful, and personalized. So this is how you utilize the STAR method. If I am the interviewer and I ask you, the interviewee, tell me why you are the best fit for our company, or tell me why, or can you give me an example of a time you had to solve a situation, right? There's often situational questions asked and behavioral questions asked in an interview. So one, prepare. You are listening carefully, you are thinking, and you're planning and organizing your thoughts in all about 5 to 8 seconds, okay? So the situation, right? This is how you're thinking your response. If you are responding to the question about, tell me about a time that you solved the situation, think of that example situation. Okay. T, task. What was a task or thing you had to do, right? What was the challenge that you were trying to meet? A, action. What are the action steps or strategies that you utilize to solve that task in the situation? And lastly, R, results. What was the result, the effect, the benefit of the strategies you used? Okay, do not think of new details as you answer. Say when you had planned for an end. So basically talk about what is the situation, what was the task or responsibility at hand, what are the steps you took, and finally, what were the results? This effective storytelling method provides an opportunity for you to paint a picture and highlight your experience for the employer. So here's an example of a student that we utilize and we made up, right? This is a fictitious student, it's not real. We asked the question, for instance, tell me about a time you had a conflict on a team project. So each of the highlighted portions is highlighting each of the letters of the STAR method. So S, situation. I was managing the creation of our new corporate brochure and we were on a very tight deadline because we had to have brochures printed in time for a big upcoming trade show. The green, task. I was in charge of delivering on time and I had to manage team members from marketing, sales, graphic design, and product management. The designer that was assigned to the project was very talented, but unfortunately missed deadlines that I assigned. When I approached him about it, he became confrontational. Okay. The orange color. All right. So this is the one, this is our A part of our STAR method. I acknowledged that the deadlines were tight and validated his frustration while emphasizing the importance of having the brochure ready for the trade show. He told me about all of his other competing projects and how overwhelmed he was. We decided to approach his manager together to clarify and prioritize his projects. Okay, so this is how you assess the issue. This was a strategy that you utilized. And so are the results. So as a result, she assigned 2 of his projects to another designer, which made his workload much more manageable. We successfully completed the brochure in time for the trade show and received numerous compliments from both our own sales rep and potential customers. Our trade show presence led to $300,000 in new sales leads, and I believe the new brochure played a key role in that. Okay, so this is an example of the behavioral questions and utilizing the STAR method that we talked about in the previous slide. So again, situation, needing to get that brochure done. The task was the designer missed the deadline. The action steps was to have a conversation together with the manager to create some strategy to solve it. The results, they did great at the trade show and it was partly done because of the brochure being done on time. Okay, so this is an example of the STAR method in action. And now, granted, this is an example of someone maybe who's a seasoned professional, but you can utilize the same aspect within your coursework. You all do team projects. Sometimes there's conflict in team projects. I want you to think about a time that you had conflict on a team project. Maybe someone wasn't completing their work on time, or maybe someone missed a deadline, or there was miscommunication. Okay, as you're watching this video, I want you to think about how you would apply the STAR method to answer this question. Now you've gone through the interview and this is coming towards the tail end, right? You've answered all their questions, you're now in a flow and they'll ask you, hey, do you have any questions for us? So traditionally you want to have at least 3 to 5 questions prepared to ask the employer. And these are some opportunities for you to ask these types of questions. What opportunities for growth are in this position? What do you enjoy most about working here? What is the next steps in the process? So these are some potential questions you want to ask at the interview. You want to avoid asking questions about vacation, time off, and salary. Those questions would be asked once you are offered the position. Now, some employers do bring up salary in the interview. So in that case, you do want to be prepared to answer questions regarding salary. Or if you want to buy yourself some time, you can tell them, I'd like, for instance, if they ask you what's your ideal salary, tell them that you would be willing to discuss, but you would like to be paid within the range for the type of position that's being offered. So after the interview, stay positive. You survived the interview, right? Kind of reflect about your experience in the interview. Think about what you can do better next time. So these are the things you want to do after the interview. You want to immediately send a thank you email, at least within the 24 hours of being interviewed. So remember at the beginning, I mentioned it's really important for you to try to get the names and positions of the folks that were on your panel, if there are multiple folks. However, if you happen to miss that, you can always contact the person who was the scheduler and ask for their contact info. So make sure you send an a thank you email to your interview committee. Express your appreciation and gratitude, restate your interest in the position, and mention interesting talk points, right? So you're not copying and pasting, sending the same thank you email. You want to tailor it to each of the folks that you mentioned. It's not a very long email. It's no more than 1 to 2 paragraphs. And now think about and reflect, right? Give yourself some credit. Interviewing is tough, right? It can be challenging. Evaluate the interview process, taking notes of the positives and opportunities for growth. Like, what can you do better next time? What did you learn from this interview process? Each time, I promise you, each time you interview, you're going to learn something new and you're going to get better. Which questions stumped you and why? And what can you do to improve future interviews? Seek outside assistance, talk to a mentor, a professor, a peer, even one of us at the Career Center, right? We can definitely give you feedback as to how you can improve your interviewing skills. Now, some employers may require background checks, right? Depending on the area and industry that you're entering, these are some of the areas that they may check. They're going to ask for references. So this is why you don't list references on your resume. They may go into the references that you listed on an application, or you might have a separate document prepared with your reference. Please let your references know that they are a reference. That way they're prepared to answer questions and when they should possibly be expecting a call after an interview. You want to make sure references are folks that can definitely speak highly and vouch of your experience. So potential references can be, professors, advisors, mentors, former supervisors or current supervisors can provide a reference. You don't want to list personal references, meaning family, right? You don't want to make sure you want to list professional references. You may have to do a background check depending on the area. So for instance, if you're interested in K-12, everyone gets fingerprinted, right? So you will might need to do a background check. Credit score, if you're going into finance, some positions require you to demonstrate colleges and degrees. So they may ask for unofficial or official transcripts or copies of your degree, driving records, and drug tests. Now, I give you tons of information to do before, during, and after the interview. So this is one of the tools you can utilize right before you interview. Use Standout. Standout is a tool that we have available for students to practice interviewing, right? So you can log in with your Toro mail and password, and you can conduct multiple practice interviews. You can even send it to a career coach to get feedback, or your professor. You can notice some of your nervous tics. Maybe you move around a lot. Maybe you don't make eye contact, or you use filler words like and like. Awareness is key because you can tell when your nerves are getting the best of you. And so you can stop, right? You can kind of catch yourself. If you notice you're speeding up in the way you talk, then this is an opportunity to catch yourself and slow down. And that's our presentation. The Career Center is here to help you succeed with your career and professional needs. On the screen, you'll see listed our contact info, our website. We have our virtual lobby available Monday through Friday from 9 to 4. It is on our homepage of our website, or you can email us. Please follow us on social media and check out our YouTube channel for other helpful videos such as this. I hope this session was super helpful for you all. We look forward to seeing you and take care and good luck with those interviews.